All right, guys. So we're at another milestone where we're just going to review the things that we implemented in this section and then get our changes checked into GitHub. So going in order of what we did, the first one would be paging. So we implemented paging where we passed in some request parameters into our get countries. And we also went ahead and set some defaults to say if they don't provide any, then we're going to provide this much information up front. Otherwise, we give the client the opportunity to say they want this many records starting from this point. And they're represented by the number as well as the page, right? So that's one thing that we implemented. We also implemented global error handling, which allows us to create or write our code without the need for too many try catches, and it comes out a bit neater than it was before, where every time we're saying try catch, try catch. All right. Another thing that we did was implement versioning on our API. So we created this country v2 controller just for experimental purposes, where we specify the API version and we explored how we can allow the client to specify which version of the API it is that they want. And I think the last bit of configuration would have them pass it in as a header. All right, so in our extend services, we put in stuff for the exception handling, the global exception handling to say, when there's an error, log and return with that 500. For the versioning, we did say that we want to implement versioning reading from the header being passed in with the request. We specified the default API version to be 1.0. So if none is specified, then it's 1.0. We also looked at implementing caching. So we can actually just provide data for up to a certain amount of time before we have to pull the database for the next request. And we also put in validation to make sure that once the underlying data changes, the data kind of refreshes on top in the cache layer. And last but by no means least, we put in throttling to kind of control how often a particular client, based on IP address, at least based on the way we've configured it, can hit a particular endpoint. So right now, the limit is very small. The period is small, but that's just for our experimental purpose. In a real situation, probably you can look at other providers like Google and so on. And if your infrastructure is robust enough, you can use their values to inform you as to how you can put in throttling. But I'll leave those example values there for now. And what we want to do is check in. So we know that we just go over to git changes and then we put in our message. And that is my message. So when I do this check-in, I'll just go ahead and commit all and sync. So everything that I've done here. And remember that in the examples, I would have done it in one place and encourage you to try it in the other place. But then you can always check the source code and double check and compare notes. And once all of that is done, we're ready to move on to our next topic.